Pele, Pele, Pele. There was a time in the mysterious past of these islands when the very air was peopled with the spirits of the departed, and a thin veil divided the living from the dead, the natural from the supernatural, and mortals were made the sport of the elements and the playthings of the gods. This was the period when Pele came to us as a foreigner, born in the mystical land of Hawai'i, a land not rooted or anchored to any one spot. Having traveled many thousands of miles in search of a suitable abode, she decided to settle in the fiery pit of Halima'uma'u, in the crater of Kilauea on the island of Hawai'i. One day, Pele, in the guise of an old, emaciated, gray-haired woman, walking with the aid of a twisted coffeewood stick, left her home to seek repose and sleep neath a spreading hala tree at Puna. Before leaving, she instructed her family and slaves not to awaken her under any condition, no matter how long she slept. Sleep had barely overcome her when she heard the sound of distant drums. Pele's curiosity was aroused, and assuming her spiritual form, she resolved to follow the sound. Leaving her slumbering earthly body, Pele mounted the air and proceeded in the direction of the sound. She followed it from island to island until she had reached the beach at Kaena on the island of Kauai. Hovering over the place unseen, she observed the mysterious drum was a pahu, a dance drum beaten by Lohiau, the handsome young prince of Kauai. Lohiau was noted for his lavish entertainments, participated in by the most noted and beautiful women of the island. Assuming the form of a woman of great beauty and grace, with every feminine charm at her command, Pele suddenly appeared before the festive throng. The prince graciously invited her to a seat near him, where she could best witness the entertainment. Glancing at the stranger from time to time, Lohiau the prince became so fascinated with Pele that he yielded the pahu to another and seated himself beside the enchantress. Gazing into her eyes with a devouring passion, Lohiau smilingly said, "I love beautiful women. Can I convince you?" Pele, with a play of modesty, answered, "Lohiau is in his own kingdom and has but to command." This completed the enthrallment of the prince. Thus, Pele became the wife of Lohiau. For a few days they loved and lived so happily together that life seemed a dream to the prince. But the time came for Pele's return to Puna. Pledging him to remain true to her, she left with vows of affection and the promise of a speedy return. Pele mounted on the wings of the wind and was wafted back to the shores of Puna and shade of the spreading hala tree. There, her spirit entered her slumbering earthly body, and she returned home. Lohiau was inconsolable over Pele's absence, and as months passed, he refused food and eventually died of grief. An old kaula, or priest, who had seen Pele at Kaena and noted her actions, told the people that the strangely beautiful and unknown woman who Lohiau had taken as a wife was an immortal who had become attached to her earthly husband and had called his spirit to her. For that reason, the body of Lohiau must lie in state until the return of his spirit. On leaving Kauai, Pele never expected or particularly desired to see the prince again, but he had so endeared himself to her during their brief marriage that she could not forget him. After struggling with the feeling, she resolved to send for him. But to whom could she entrust the important mission? Pele appealed to her sisters and brothers, but knowing the way was beset with evil spirits, they refused to go. Pele then sent for her youngest and favorite sister, Hi'iaka. She accepted the mission with the understanding her devoted and beautiful friend, Hopoi, should accompany her. Arrangements were made for the immediate departure. Pele conferred on Hi'iaka some of her own powers with an injunction to use them discreetly. On arrival at Kaena, Kauai, Hi'iaka saw the spirit hand of Lohiau beckoning to her from the mouth of the cave among the cliffs. Turning to her companion, she said, "The lover of Pele is dead. I see his spirit beckoning from the pali." Leaving her companions, Hi'iaka alone ascended the cliff, and entering the cave, found the spirit of Lohiau hidden in a niche. Taking it tenderly in her hand, she enclosed it in a fold of her kikepa gown, and in an invisible form floated down with it to Pu'o'a. Waiting until after nightfall, Hi'iaka entered the chamber of death unseen, and with the supernatural powers that Pele had given her, she restored the spirit to the earthly body of Lohiau, and he became a living mortal. The guards on duty fled in fright at the sight of their prince coming to life, but returned when assured by Hi'iaka that Lohiau must be fed and cared for secretly and tenderly until his full strength was restored. It was not long before his recovery was celebrated and sacrifices made to the gods. Soon after, Lohiau announced to his people that he was leaving to visit Pele, his wife, on Hawai'i, in a magnificent double canoe bearing the royal and priestly standards and equipped as became the kaulua of an ali'i nui. Lohiau set sail for Hawai'i with Hi'iaka, Hopoi, and his retinue. Lohiau, fascinated with the beauty and gentleness of Hopoi, was falling in love with her. After a few days of sea traveling, the prince decided to journey overland and ordered his canoe to meet him at Hilo. On and on Hi'iaka, Hopoi, and the prince traveled until they reached Keau'au, Hi'iaka giving little heed to the romance existing between Lohiau and Hopoi. Pele, impatient at Hi'iaka's long absence and suspicious of her sister having fallen in love with the prince, prepared for an eruption. It was averted when the winds of Keau'au, hearing of this, carried the true message to Pele that although Lohiau had been untrue to her, he had taken unto himself Hopoi, not Hi'iaka. In a rage of jealousy, Pele appeared before Lohiau and punished him by throwing him over the precipitous cliff of Kahalikai into the sea below. Lohiau called continuously to Hopoi from his watery grave, and Hopoi tried to appease him by casting lehua blossoms to him, but of no avail. Grief-stricken, Hopoi threw herself over the cliff. The lovers were immediately transformed into two huge rocks. At low tide, Hopoi and Lohiau, to this day, can be seen in the sea off Kahalekai, lying side by side. Prince Lohiau was Pele's one and only love. In her jealous rage and punishment of Lohiau, she had killed his spirit and earthly body at the same instant, losing her lover forever. Upon Hi'iaka's return, a consultation was held in the crater by all the gods under the watchful eyes of the seven rainbows. Pele announced that she was again free and could assume her former role of their fire goddess, and as such reign supreme over all her domain. The preparation of a great eruption began. Down thousands of feet in the pit, lava started to boil. The land about began to tremble. The entire surroundings took on a crimson glow. Fountains of fiery lava rose high into the air. Those who were present whispered in awe, "Aiya Pele, there is Pele." Casting aside her cloak of molten lava, Pele displayed herself as the ever-glorious fire goddess, with all the flame of youth, beauty, love, and passion. In this fantastic setting, Pele knows all. She has been, she is, she always will be, in the pantheon of ancient Hawaiian worship, the deity most respected and at the same time most dreaded. Pele, Pele.